All right, so welcome everyone to our webinar, Psychology of Spending. My name is Dawn Watson and I'm going to be your host. I am a partner experience manager with GreenPath Financial Wellness, which is a partner of Genesis Credit Union. And we're happy that you joined us today for the webinar. So as we start looking at the psychology of spending, we're first going to turn our attention to our spending habits. How did we become a spender or maybe a saver? There are various factors that have contributed to our current relationship with money. So let me ask a question of all of you. What do you think some of those influences are on our spending? So again, if you wouldn't mind popping those into the chat, that would be great. What do you think influences our spending habits? Looks like we got a couple answers here. Ads, love that one, thank you. Have our family, for sure. Yes, and even our friends. Your childhood. Yes, thank you. So we're going to take a look at how our spending habits can be influenced by values, advertising, as somebody had mentioned, social factors, as well as self-concept. So let's start out with values. To understand why we spend, we must first understand our values and our attitudes towards money. So what's the difference between a value and an attitude? So the two words are often used interchangeably, but are actually rather distinct ideas. So our values, those are strongly held beliefs that reflect our upbringing. Without examination and conscious effort, it is very difficult to alter a person's value. Attitudes are more easily changed. They usually reflect our current life situation, our likes, dislikes. As such, they are not as deeply embedded as values. Now, the two do work together and can influence each other, but they're really not the same thing. So, a simple example of the difference. Let's say Robert, we're going to call him Robert. He values hard work and commitment. But on a Monday morning at 6 a.m., his attitude towards work may be less than positive, creating in him a negative emotional reaction to his alarm clock going off. His value hasn't changed, just his immediate attitude towards going to work has. And that attitude leads to the behavior of hitting the snooze button one too many times. So you say, that's great, but what does that have to do with spending? It matters, because our values usually influence our attitudes, and our attitudes create an emotional reaction. So that emotional reaction can lead us to certain behaviors. For some of us, that behavior detours us from achieving our financial goals. So how do we stop the counterproductive behavior? Well, we have to go back to the beginning and understand what our values about money and spending came from. The only way to alter your attitude towards money, and thus your behavior, is to understand the values that lead to those attitudes. So our money values are influenced by several factors. What affects our money values? Well, we're going to start with our family. So the family in which a person is raised usually has the greatest influence on an individual's values about money. So research finds that we're a lot more like our parents than we actually think, or at least as far as our spending habits are concerned. Our tendency to spend or save, the way we manage money, even the brands we choose to spend our money on, are all highly influenced by what our parents did while we were growing up. Also media. So, the American movies, television shows, they're all filled with images of the good life. The lifestyles depicted is often far from the reality that most of us are experiencing, and yet these projected images deeply influence the way we see our personal level of success and what we value. An individual's values are also influenced by cultural values. America is really a culture of spending. Since the explosion of easily accessible credit that began back in the 80s, our cultural tendency has been a buy now, pay later mentality. We value material goods and, culturally speaking, tend to judge others not on their character, but rather on what they own. So next we're going to do an exercise. So if you can find a piece of paper, something to write with, we want you to jot down some ideas as we go along. So in this exercise, we're going to follow 6 steps to learn about our values. Give me a minute here, get that paper pen. All right, so step 1, identify a time in your life when you felt the happiest. What were you doing? Were there others with you? If so, whom? What in particular made this time happy? Give me a minute to answer those. For yourself, you don't have to put them in the chat if you don't want to, but just for yourself. For me, I think one of the happiest times in my life was when I graduated from college. I was the first generation in my family that went to college, and it was a major win for my family as well as for me. So I think that was kind of one of my happiest times in life. Don't forget, obviously, my marriage and my kids. But step 2, identify a time in your life when you made a difficult decision, but knew with all certainty that it was the right decision. What made the decision difficult to make? Did you feel relief once the decision was made? How did you know it was the right decision? Okay, start thinking about that. Yeah, for me, early in my marriage, my husband and I, we were going to purchase a truck. We picked it out. We'd already talked about the financing. We were literally ready to go sign on the dotted line. Before we headed to the dealership, I just had this intense feeling that we were going to be making a really big mistake. It was the bare bones truck. It was a stick shift truck, which is crazy to think about now. But this was something my husband really wanted. And when I was telling him how I felt and was like, I just don't think we can do this, you can imagine he was disappointed, maybe a little frustrated. I knew it was the right thing to do. And looking back on it, we still laugh about it today. And he agrees it was the right decision. By no means did he agree at that point, but it was a financial decision that I just knew wasn't right. So that was something that was a difficult decision because I knew his disappointment was going to be there, but it was definitely the right thing to do. I'm sure everybody's had something like that. Step 3, identify a time in your life when you felt the most successful. So what about the achievement made it a success? Did other people know about the success, or was it a personal achievement? What particularly made you feel successful? Again, start thinking about that, jot it down on your paper. Again, I think for me, this was when I was able to really start to actively increase our retirement contribution to a much higher level. Of course, we have 3 children, so it was a little while into our lives before we were able to get to that point. Childcare was no longer there, and it freed up that money. And instead of spending it on other things, we made the active choice to actually put it in retirement. And now that we're getting closer to that age, really grateful that we did that. Okay, the next one is identify a time in your life when you felt the most satisfied and peaceful. What was happening at the time? Were there others with you? If so, whom? What in particular made this time peaceful and satisfying? All right, so again, for me, I think this was really watching my children grow into adults. Knowing that they actually listened and remembered some of the experiences that we had as a family, whether they were good or bad, that they were able to learn from them and now successfully navigate adulthood on their own. Right. Step 5, using your experiences of happiness, certainty, success, and satisfaction. Try to describe in just a few words why each experience was truly important and memorable. And ultimately, the goal of this is to lead to a few core values that you find important to you. So maybe it's family, maybe it's integrity, diversity, commitment, learning. For me, I think from those, I picked out security, financial independence, and family. Those were my core values that I pulled out of my answers. So think about where you're at. Now, once you've defined your core values, think about ways in which you choose to spend money. Are your spending choices in line with your core values? If not, what changes can you make to better align your spending and your values? So, Gandhi had said, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So the question is, are you currently spending the money in line with those? If not, make a conscious decision to put your money into the things that represent your core values rather than allowing your spending habits to determine your values. So share your values with your family. I think that's so important. Spending decisions will be influenced by every member of the family. So it's important that everyone understands one another's values and that you have identified and shared those. And I think that was key in our household. We were pretty open with our kids, and I think that made it easier for them. They can come to us when they have needs, questions, or concerns, and I think that helped them a lot. Now let's turn our attention to other influences on our spending behaviors. So experts estimate that the average person is exposed to anywhere between 4,000 and 10,000 advertisements daily. 4,000 and 10,000 advertisements. So this is taking into account not only the advertisements that we see when watching TV or listening to the radio, but also those that pop up while surfing the internet, while we're using our favorite apps, of course, on our social media. There's those glaring advertisements like the billboards on the side of the highway, and then the subtler advertisements such as product placements in movies and TV shows. We are being influenced by those advertisements. Whether you think it or not, you are. So we're going to do a little activity here. So again, grab your chat, open that up, chat over to all the hosts and the panelists. We're going to test your brand recognition skills by seeing if you can identify these logos. So if you wouldn't mind, as soon as you see the logo, pop it into the chat. Here's our first one. Who does that logo belong to? Yep, Nike. Pretty obvious. Next one. KFC. Thank you. Yep. How about this one? Yeah, Starbucks. This one might be something that you maybe visit every day on your way to work if you're driving to work. How about this one? Yep, Apple. And this one? Amazon, yep. I have a package that was just delivered yesterday. I was influenced by the ease and convenience of it. How about this one? Yep, Chili's. And then, of course, you see it on pretty much every corner. McDonald's. And finally, Target. Yes. So think about these. I mean, you see these advertisements, you drive by these places, they're ingrained into our brain. Nobody really probably had to think too hard about who these belong to. So advertisers are constantly bombarding us with images of happy, healthy, smiling people using their particular products. This creates that psychological connection with our brains, linking personal fulfillment with their products. So look at those screens. Look at the screen. So you see the lady talking on the phone. Here's the Starbucks, and she's holding her Starbucks, cups. And then the person that's using their computer, it's the Apple computer. The Apple is there. You can see all of these different products are in these various commercials or TV shows, images that you see, and subconsciously you're looking at these and you're like, hey, yeah, let me go get some Starbucks. So really start thinking about how you might be influenced by those advertisements. There's also social situations that it can influence our purchasing behavior. So, may I ask a question? What are some social circumstances that might affect your spending? So again, please pop your thoughts in the chat to the hosts and panelists. Love to hear what your thoughts are before I tell you what my thoughts are. Entertainment, thank you. Going out to eat with friends and family. Yeah, friends and family. That's key. Yeah, think about, yeah, your friends, your family, your neighbors, keeping up with the Joneses. I'm sure you've probably heard that before. You see them come home with a new car and you're like, oh man, my car is not as nice as I'd like it to be. I should consider getting a new car. Yeah, work, absolutely. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here in a second. Social media, these are all great examples of how they can influence us or what influences us. So, to some degree, consumers in the same social classes exhibit similar purchasing behavior. The higher our socioeconomic status, often the more expensive the cars, houses, clothing, and food we buy. Our peer group, again, our friends and family, also have a strong influence on our spending habits. We may think that peer pressure of this kind only exists for teenagers, but it is true for adults as well. Have you ever found yourself going out to lunch at work? So the work thing, even though you brought your lunch because everyone else was going out, or spending more money than you intended to when shopping with a friend. Hey, they would show you this really great thing. Oh, this would look so good on you. Okay, I'll buy it. Those are the pressures that we're experiencing all the time. Let's not forget about atmosphere. So most of us have had the experience of being in a department store, shopping in the mall, and finding it extremely difficult to find the exit. And that's not by accident, especially at the malls. The longer you're in the store, the greater likelihood that you're going to make a purchase. And retailers control the lighting, the layout, the music, the temperature, and sometimes even the smell to entice you to buy. For most people, shopping is not simply an act of purchasing what you need and then going home. Shopping is that entertainment and social involvement, and the mall or the store is experiential. So for researchers, malls are vast, complex, and complete. Studies have shown that more actual purchases occur in the third hour of shopping. The malls are designed to keep a shopper there for at least that long, with the winding architecture, appealing music, and even adding pleasuring aromas to not difficult for you to avoid. Also, with that shift on how people are shopping, moving to online, the online platforms have also found ways to create an atmosphere for you to buy. I'm extremely guilty here. I get text messages or email messages saying, hey, you left something in your shopping cart, come back here. Or they create those sales. I mean, think of Amazon Prime, they have Amazon Prime days. They create that sense of urgency. Oh, I've got to buy it now or I'm going to miss out. These are all things that are influencing us to buy. So another very important factor that influences our spending is our own self-concept. Each of us carries a certain set of beliefs about ourselves. This set of beliefs is known as our self-concept. Generally speaking, we act in ways that are consistent with our self-concept. For example, if I said I'm a good cook, I would probably offer to help prepare a meal for somebody. But I'm not. I don't say that. I say I'm not a great cook. Matter of fact, I'm like a one-item cook that I can do really well. So I probably wouldn't be that person that would be offering up if I didn't have to. Same with spending. If I'm a good saver, I'm going to have that image that I'm going to be more likely to save money. But if I say I'm a spender, I'm probably going to be spending. So your self-image, think about who am I? That previous slide, who are you? So again, think about that. Try to use that when you're considering your spending influences and what you can do. So now we're going to take a couple seconds here. We're going to go into how our behavior, when our behavior doesn't match our self-image, it can lead to mental stress. So acting in ways that are contrary to our self-image can lead to something called cognitive dissonance. So in psychology, cognitive dissonance is the mental stress caused when our brains are confronted with contradictory beliefs or values. So again, let's say a person's self-image was, I'm a good riddle solver. And they would experience that cognitive dissonance if they were confronted with a riddle that they cannot solve, while someone without that self-concept would probably likely not care one bit. So if your beliefs don't match your behavior, you'll be stressed out. And let's not forget about the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is a prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true. So I keep telling myself, oh, I can't save money. I might as well just spend it. I'm going to go to the store and I'm likely going to spend that money, even though I probably shouldn't have, because that is kind of that cognitive dissonance that I'm not that saver, or, and then the self-fulfilling prophecy that, well, it came true. I might as well just continue to do what I'm doing and not worry about it. And that would be a huge problem if I didn't worry about it. And then I had a major car repair that had to be managed and I didn't have the money saved. So really start thinking of yourself as what you want to envision. So what does this have to do with money? So again, because we subconsciously go to great lengths to avoid cognitive dissonance, we will act in ways consistent with our self-concept around money. So if you think yourself as a saver, you'll probably feel more psychological stress when you have to take the money out of your savings account for a large purchase. But if you think of yourself as a spender, you're more likely to make impulse purchases. So again, start thinking about what you can envision yourself to be, so that you'll hopefully be able to change some of those behaviors based on that. So once we have a greater understanding of our values and the factors that affect our attitude about money, we can then decide if we need to make a change to reach our financial goals. So if you have determined changing and becoming more of a saver than a spender, then it's time to talk about a few strategies to save. So can anybody tell me, what does pay yourself first mean? I'll throw it into the chat. Yeah, so paying yourself first means to designate a certain amount of money before it goes, before to go into savings before any other bills are paid. So if you have done your budget and you have the ability, based on your budget, to save $20 a week, then that $20 a week should be as equally important in your budget as paying your mortgage or your rent. Try to make that a set thing. Otherwise, that $20 is probably going to be spent on dining out, getting up some things at the store that you probably didn't need. So if you decide, again, whatever percentage or set dollar amount is, start putting that into savings. And people have reported that by doing that, they're able to save more money. Another strategy is to learn to love savings. You may find that watching your money grow and saving for future purchases will be more satisfying than spending impulsively. So remember, we talked about this. Change your self-concept from one of I love spending to I love savings can actually help you change that behavior. And I've seen this firsthand with my daughter. She was a spender. When she got her first job, she would spend her money as soon as she made it and then come crying saying, I spent all my money. Now that she's an adult, she is all about the savings component. She's changed her self-concept. She saves. She has those separate savings accounts for the various goals that she's saving for. And she is a penny pincher now. So it can be done. I've seen it. I've seen it with clients that we work with, and I've seen it from my daughter. So align your spending with your values. If you find that you're spending more money than you want on items like entertainment, eating out, clothes, and other wants, review your core values. If entertainment was not one of your top values, why would you be continuing to spend a lot of money on it? Find the things that truly matter to you and then demonstrate its importance with your spending decisions. So, and finally, please be aware that we're highly influenced by that advertising. Think before you buy. All important questions to ask yourself before you buy to assure you're being intentional with your purchases. What are some of the strategies that can help prevent these impulse purchases? So what do you think some things could do to help you or others to be able to avoid spending when you hadn't intended to? If you have thoughts, pop them in the chat. Yeah, so one of them was, do I feel a need for this item before I saw it in the store? Yeah, I mean, were you intentionally going to buy it, or was it just like, oh, that looks cool? Yes, thank you. How will this serve me and my life? I think about that every time because clutter, I don't want to keep bringing things into the house that's just going to clutter up the house. So I'm like, do I really need this? Can I use something else? Is it necessary? Absolutely. Also, what is the financial cost of this purchase? Does it make sense? Do I really want to spend that much money on whatever it is? Can I afford it? Really thinking back at that intentional spending. Yeah, what might you have to give up to be able to afford it? Yes. There's always, something that's going to have to give if you're going to spend it on something else. Yes, thank you. You get value out of it. Would that make the cost worth it? And that very well may be the best question to ask too. If you're not going to get value, probably the cost isn't worth it. If you see this great sweater at the store and you're like, oh, I want to buy that, but you have 10 in your closet, is there value to that? Probably not. So yes, those are all great. Thank you for sharing, everyone. So understanding your values, attitudes, and emotional reactions can help you change your behaviors. Defining your values help you make money choices that are in line with them. Being aware of the things that impact your attitudes, again, social status, peer pressure, advertising, can help you change your behavior. And don't forget, building your savings usually relieves stress. So combining these insights with the why you buy will hopefully help you make the choices that will allow you to meet your financial goals. Now, I hope this has helped you to lead you on your path to being intentional about your money choices. Again, remember, you're welcome to schedule. GreenPath is a nonprofit financial counseling and education organization. We're here to support you. You're welcome to contact us if you want help with just reviewing your budget so that you can make some of those intentional spending decisions. You are welcome to reach out to us at the 877-274-7580 number, or you can check us out on the website, greenpath.com/Genesis, to learn a little bit more about the different services we have. There's some really great educational tools on our website. There's a budgeting worksheet. If you don't have a budget, I encourage you to go there and check that out. Also, if you are going to work towards that goal of being a saver and you don't have the accounts set up to be able to do that, go ahead and contact Genesis. Discuss how they can assist you with their savings accounts. If you have children, this is a great time to start that behavior for them early. Get them scheduled, set up with a savings account. Get them aware of the importance of savings and that spending isn't what it's 100% about. That future need for that money could be more important than that immediate need. So really encourage you, if your kids don't have a savings account, talk to Genesis about that. If you want to talk about the different products they have to make savings easier for you, or what you can earn on that savings, or how to create different savings accounts for different goals, they are the person. You can reach out to them at the 800-521-8440 number. I know we've talked about a lot. I am going to stay on the line to answer any questions that you have. If you're all set, thank you for joining today. Again, you can keep an eye out on your email for the recording. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Let's see if there's any questions. Pop them again in the chat to host or to the panelists. There is a question that came in. It's asking, what is the psychology behind impulse buying and how does it relate to emotions and decision making? So essentially, again, impulse buying is when you don't put much or any thought into what you want to purchase. Something in that particular moment probably triggered you to make the purchase, which often leads to regret in the future. Ideally, you want to determine what is making that temptation to make the purchase. So in the future, you can potentially avoid putting yourself in that position. For instance, if you're going shopping, maybe instead of taking your credit and debit card, take cash and take what you could budget, what you can afford to spend. So if you have a tendency to impulse buy, it's going to immediately minimize that because, again, you're not going to have another form of payment other than the cash that you intentionally intended to take. So once you're out of money, you're done.